everyone, and welcome to the second episode of Overeducated and Underloved Millennials. My name is Katie, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Adam. Hi, Adam.
Hi.
This week we will be discussing the monarchy, the cabinet, and energy and the energy crisis. So, Adam, how have you been this week?
I've been very well, thank you. Just, the usual sort of cracking on with work. Nothing particularly special going on, to be honest. It's just getting on with the usual stuff.
Same,
I was supposed to be going to football on Sunday. It was meant to be the opening weekend of the Women's Super League season, but that was of course scrapped due to, the topic we will discuss in a minute, which was,
cancelled.
Yeah, I sort of understood from one perspective, but also was very frustrated, particularly, with the growth of women's football. It was going to be a really exciting weekend, but sadly, have to be postponed to this coming weekend. So we'll hopefully it'll be all right.
And as I keep being reminded by a lot of people, it is only one weekend.
Yes.
As much as it, frustrating, it is only one weekend. I've just noticed that I have lips in how I tweet, so I'm sorry to everybody for that. That will hopefully not reoccur. Let's get cracking, I think, in interest of time, considering that we went so over last week. Apologies.
Yes,
everybody.
Yeah. We promised to try and keep it to an hour, maybe slightly over, but we'll try our best.
Yes. So obviously last week the UK had an incredibly busy week. We saw a new Prime Minister come into office on Monday. We saw the death of a long-reigning monarch in the United Kingdom, Queen Elizabeth II, on the Thursday. It was a very, very busy week. Obviously, a lot of things have happened since the Queen passed away. So we've had obviously the ascension of her son, Charles III, and his, coronation is being planned for next year, I believe. Her funeral will be held on Monday, the 19th of September, which is a bank holiday. So we just wanted to take this time to really sort of discuss the monarchy, give some of our thoughts on a time that has actually become quite turbulent in the United Kingdom, as obviously there is a distinct divide between people who are supportive of the monarchy and of the new king and individuals that aren't. So, Adam, if you'd like to take it away.
So I think where I would start, I would say I was rather mixed in a weird way. So I am, ideologically, I'm a Republican. I'm probably the most right-wing Republican you'll find in the UK, if we're being honest. But I did feel sadness. I genuinely did feel a sense of sadness, and I think what that shows is just how embedded Queen Elizabeth II was in the British psyche. I think, regardless of your ideas of the monarchy, I genuinely believe, for all the issues there might be with the institution, I believe she was very well respected. I think if you see the response from world leaders, particularly I thought President Macron and Prime Minister Trudeau, I thought were very, very heartfelt,
very touching,
very, very heartfelt,
very touching
addresses regarding the issue. And I think, it was a strange one because, I've spent my whole life sort of believing that, this institution should be removed, we should get rid of it. But I did still feel a sort of sadness, and I did feel, genuine respect for someone despite maybe not agreeing with their position in principle.
So it was pretty much the same for me, to be fair. Obviously, we were all watching the news on Thursday when they released a statement in the morning saying that the Queen was unwell. Just as sort of, I know that we get viewers and listeners from all over the world. So just an insight. They don't usually give you any insight into the health of the monarchy at all. In the United Kingdom, it's kind of all kept under wraps. And if you find out anything, you find out anything afterwards. So the fact that they said that the Queen was very unwell was an indicator of, okay, something's going on here. So I don't know if you were the same, but I kind of had the news on in the background all day because I knew that something was going to happen, especially when the new Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition were basically called out of Parliament. I was like, oh, okay, something's going on here. I mean, I'm in exactly the same position. So I am staunchly a Republican. I find it difficult for people to say that they can be a socialist and a monarchist, because obviously being a socialist, you believe that everybody is equal. So, a monarchy kind of completely treads all over that. And I think that I felt quite sad, just because on a human level, death is sad. Death is sad on a human level, and the institution that she was part of, she had no choice on whether she was part of it, firstly. Secondly, she is someone's mum and their grandma and their auntie, and so death is sad. And I think that the way that I was raised, I think, is the best way to put it, is that I was raised that as a socialist, your power is in your humanity. And so it was really important to me, like you said, to just respect people and respect the humanity of the situation at that time. And there's two great equalers in life. We're all born and we all die, and you can be the Queen of England, and that's still true for you. And that's the crook of it, really, for me. Yeah, I it still doesn't make me want to not get rid of the monarchy. If anything, this might be incredibly controversial. Well, I know it is going to be incredibly controversial because people are out here getting arrested, but I'm actually more against the monarchy now that the Queen's died than I was when she was here, because I think for young people in the UK, like, the Queen was like a stay, a sort of figure that had always been there. So for 80% of the British population, they have only ever known Queen Elizabeth II as the monarch. They have known no other monarch. Like, that's a crazy statistic.
Yeah.
80% of the British population have known no other monarch. And she was kind of like, because we were born in like the 90s, she was kind of like this really nice old grandma.
Yeah, no, exactly. She's always been that sort of elderly stateswoman who's kind of just sort of always been there, always been sort of, not particularly controversial.
Yeah, she's never said anything too controversial. She's always kind of just carried along. Like, even in the Meghan and Harry debacle, Meghan was really pointed in saying the Queen has never been horrible to me. She's a lovely person. Like, so, but I think now, with the change to Charles in the UK is quite a controversial figure. He has written to Parliament quite a few times about things which you're not meant to do as a constitutional monarch.
Yeah.
I think that it's going to be interesting to see where the monarchy goes now. Now that they've lost the Queen.
I think it will be interesting. I think, to be honest, in the UK context, I think it's here to stay. I also think, to be honest, if I'm looking at priorities of constitutional reform, I think I've got a few things on the list above the monarchy I want to deal with first. So I suspect in the UK context, Charles probably won't be as popular. I mean, that just goes without saying, but I don't think it's going to particularly threaten the monarchy here. However, it might do in other places. So Jacinda Ardern, I believe yesterday or a couple of days ago, said that she could see New Zealand becoming a republic within her lifetime. There's been polling in Canada, which suggests that the majority of Canadian people, not by a lot, but still a majority, do support turning to becoming a republic and are very unfavourable of Charles. I think there was another poll in Canada which asked, should Charles be on Canadian money? And over 50% of people said no, and I think only 24 or 25% said yes. So it's clearly an issue which I think I'm curious to see how the monarchy will respond to the possibility of many of these former, places where they are still head of state. How will they respond to this? Will they, go on a global tour in a desperate attempt to charm, or will they almost sort of begrudgingly accept it? I think that's an interesting question to look at.
And I think that it opens up the question, obviously, of the symbolism of the monarchy overseas. And I think that obviously we've both kind of started off very sort of saying how sad we were, but also I would like to take the time to say that I understand as a Republican that the British monarchy is a symbol of rampant and disgusting colonialism across the world. So I understand that there were a lot of people that were not sad that the Queen had died. Do I think that posting tweets saying that you hope that she dies in a really painful way is the best way to get your message across? No, I don't. But I understand that the British monarchy, the flag that we still fly, is the symbol of the modern slave trade. It's the symbol of countless genocides throughout the world, the disregards of homelands of millions of people. It rests at the door of Britain and the British monarchy. So I understand why a lot of countries would want to declare themselves as republics now. and I understand why the feeling throughout the world has been mixed at the death of the Queen. And I think that everybody has a right to express their opinion. Does that mean that I think that some of it is unsavory? Yeah, I do, but it's not always for me to say, you know, like, so yeah, I think that the issue that we're having in the United Kingdom at the moment with a lot of people being arrested for protesting, etc., is the issue that we continually have as British people, in that we find it very difficult to come to terms with our history and parts of our history that we are not proud of. And I think that the protests in the Republic campaigning at the moment, which is against the ascension of the King. It is nothing to do with the death of the Queen. It is firmly against the ascension of a new king. I want to point that out. Nobody has said anything about Queen Elizabeth in these protests. It's all focused on the ascension. I think that it's drawing people's attention to parts of British history that we would rather forget about. I think that that's why people are reacting so negatively to it.
Yeah, I would like to talk about those arrests, and just to be clear, I always try to make sure we get the facts right and get the details right. So
100%.
From what I gather, there's been 2 high-profile cases in Scotland where 2 people have been arrested and charged. One was a young woman who held up a sign saying F imperialism, obviously not saying F, but you know what you can work out what it said from that. Abolish the monarchy. And the second one was a young man who heckled Prince Andrew during the procession of the Queen's body.
He called him a dirty old man.
Was that the exact quote?
Yes, a dirty old man.
So particularly the second one, I think I would say it's probably bad taste to do it during a procession. However, that doesn't justify arresting and charging someone. I think that, to me, as a liberal who strongly believes in free speech, that to me is fundamentally just wrong. And I think I've seen some justifications on Twitter from the sign, for example, saying, oh, it had a swear word on it, so that justifies the police reacting. My response to that would be, well, have you ever been to a march where there hasn't been a sign with a swear word?
I wore a T-shirt to a march. I have a bag that says F Brexit on it. I have a T-shirt that says F Brexit on it. I have a T-shirt that says F the Tories. I have never been arrested for wearing those T-shirts, and I have worn them in public numerous times. Yeah, and the police have never even approached me.
Yeah, to me it's insane. And so looking at cases in England as well. So there was one case of a man who had a blank piece of white paper in London. He asked the police officer, if I write "not my king" on this piece of paper, what will happen? And he said he'd be arrested, and I think that's been recorded, so that's on the record. And there was also a case in Oxford where a man was arrested but not charged as of yet, where it was the proclamation in Oxford, the official proclamation, and he shouted, I believe when Charles was referenced, he claims he shouted, "Who elected him? Who's he accountable to?"
Which is fair enough.
Which is a completely valid and not particularly controversial point. And he was then apparently security grabbed him and police handcuffed him and chucked him in a car. And it's for me, things like that. Again, it's for anything that would make me extremely uncomfortable, being a strong, passionate liberal who believes in free speech. But particularly given that the general argument is that Britain should be a democratic republic. That's not that shouldn't be okay. Fine, if you have a different opinion, I respect that, and I'm happy to have the conversation. But saying I believe that we should have a democratic republic, like almost every other well-respected Western nation, shouldn't be that controversial. It should be a respected viewpoint just as much as I believe that if you believe in keeping the monarchy, that's fine. I respect that. I think that's perfectly valid.
Like, I'm not going to go. So I agree with you when it comes to the heckling of Andrew. I think that it was more the time and place that I would question personally. However, as a woman, I would like to say the utilisation of the British media at the moment of the death of the monarch to try and rehabilitate Prince Andrew's image is absolutely disgusting. As a woman, it shows how not seriously people take crimes against women. Prince Andrew paid off a woman in the United States of America who he sexually assaulted while she was underage. She was a minor. By the law where she was in America at the time, and he was aware of that. Okay, well, allegedly he was aware of that, but I mean, in my opinion, you don't pay somebody off unless you're guilty. But that's anywho. He has been stripped of his ability to wear military dress. He has been stripped of his ability to do all of these things because he let down the monarchy and he let down his family by doing that. And he also, was subject to criminal charges. So he doesn't deserve a rehabilitation of image. So I wanted to say that. I think it's absolutely disgusting that they're using his mother's death to try and rehabilitate his image. No, he's been accused of serious sexual offences. It should just stop there. So I agree with what the guy's sentiment, but I agree with you. It was not the time, not while the Queen's coffin was there. Like, it's disrespectful. I was at a protest not long ago where in Norwich where we were protecting a drag queen that wanted to read a story time to children, and the far right was there. And we actually stopped shouting and all quietened down because somebody turned up in a hearse and there was a funeral going on, and we all stopped because there's a time and a place,
Yeah.
So that was my thing with that. But I totally agree with you that we cannot say that we are a free and democratic society if we are arresting people simply for expressing their opinion. Now,
effectively heckling. Effectively,
yes. The article that they are using to arrest people is of the new Tory. I can't think of the name of the act. Can you help me out?
Well, no, but I think the important to clarify, not in Scotland. In Scotland, it's a different.
Not act in Scotland, yes.
Passed by I believe the most recent version has been passed by the Scottish National Party, so that should be noted as well.
Yeah. So they're using, I think in the UK, in England, they're using Article 5, which is disruption of the peace.
Well, I know that there was some confusion. So I think for example, the man in Oxford, he apparently he says he was told by police that he was being charged under this new, I can't remember what the act's called, but it was this new legislation passed by the Conservatives, I think just a couple of years ago, if not last year.
Yeah,
he was told he was told he was being arrested for that, but then apparently the police then briefed the media that it was for an earlier act, I believe, disruption of the peace, which I think is a similar act.
Disruption of the peace.
Well, that makes me uncomfortable in principle as well.
Because normal things can disrupt the peace. If a toddler's having a tantrum, that can disrupt the peace. Like, it's not. You get what I mean.
Yeah.
Like,
no, I understand. Yeah, no, completely. And I think it is deeply concerning. I think it's not just, obviously we've seen this with the monarchy, but also the way the Sarah Everard protests were put down. I think brutally. I think that's a fair comment to say.
Brutally.
It does make me slightly concerned that protest is the right to protest is under attack in this country, and it does concern me. And hopefully, I am, just to end on a more positive point before we move on, I am encouraged by the fact that it hasn't just been sort of people like us complaining about these arrests. Yeah. You have actually had very sort of, mainstream pro-monarchist people, Piers Morgan, Ian Dale, I believe others as well. I think even Julia Hartley-Brewer, I think, even condemned it. Yes. So the fact that it's being condemned by literally everyone from across the political spectrum does give me hope that the government will see, actually, clearly this is a step too far, and hopefully we'll try and pull back some of these.
It's an attack on everybody, right?
Yes.
Like, when one person is arrested for expressing their opinion, it is attack on the civil liberties of everybody in this country.
Yes, absolutely.
And people should definitely sit up and take note. But by the same token, also as well, I think that the royal family should be allowed to grieve at this time.
100%.
For their mother and for their grandmother. And I'm saying that as a fellow human being that likes to treat the people that I disagree with better than they treat me. And we need to be better.
No, absolutely. 100% agree.
Yeah. So talking of Tory acts.
Should we move on to the cabinet, should we?
Yeah.
So let's look at the individuals and judge them on their individual character. So we'll start with the sort of, I would argue, the most important job outside of Prime Minister, Chancellor, and that is Kwasi Kwarteng. And I think he sort of represents my general issue with this cabinet. It seems to me very much Liz Truss, just very much like Boris Johnson did, just pick Truss loyalists. It was very much exactly, if you help me during the leadership election, if you back me from the start, you'll get a job, sort of thing, which isn't exactly how I would like to see a country run at all. But
Well,
there
this
you
is what I
go.
mean. I don't think that they're the best for their portfolios, because it's
Yeah.
basically like, who's going to support me?
But so I mean that's the thing. So when I look at, as far as I don't know that much about Kwasi Kwarteng, I know he's had two sort of junior sort of, I think he's been a business minister under two different roles in sort of the business. I think he's under the business secretary, I believe.
Yeah, and he's published various books on economics and libertarian.
The main thing that concerns me really is that I just don't see him, and I would like to be proven wrong. I don't see him as someone who would challenge Liz Truss. I think obviously they have to. Obviously, a prime minister and a chancellor have to be on the same page when it comes to policy, right? But I think it is good when you have a chancellor who is willing to question and willing to push back on a prime minister a bit, willing to challenge a prime minister. I think that's a strong, important thing.
Yeah.
I think the perfect example of that was probably Blair and Brown. I think
Blair and Brown, yeah.
That was the perfect example of that. They'd come together on a policy when it had been agreed, but they'd sort of scream at each other possibly behind the scenes. And I think that's
not even possibly, definitely. They definitely were at each other's
I think
throats.
I think that is a good thing. Bizarrely, I think it's better to have that than have someone who just nods and says yes, prime minister all the time.
Well, because the prime minister's main role is to look at things, politically, and to gauge the political ground, and to incorporate the Treasury into that, as basically they manage the cabinet. It's the prime minister and their cabinet. And I think that the chancellor's role in that should definitely be to be critically looking at the economy, critically looking at the policies that the party are looking to implement in the economy, and basically saying yay or nay, whether that's possible or not. And when you have a chancellor, you don't want a yes person. You want somebody who is going to do what is best for the economy. And the big red flag for me with Kwasi Kwarteng is his ideological belief being so ingrained in how he looks at the economy, which makes me feel like he's not going to be able to respond in a way that people need him to respond when they need him to respond. So, and I take this from, I was doing some background reading, and I read a Guardian article about Kwasi Kwarteng, and it outlined that in his thesis he wrote about 17th century British economy, and in his latest book, which was Britannia Unchained, which was a 2012 collection of essays, it advocated for a small state UK. It rallied against what he called bloated state, high taxes and excessive regulation. It rallied against everything that we exactly need right now. And so I am very dubious of his ability to handle the current inflation situation and the current energy crisis if his perspective on economic policy is basically unfettered free market capitalism. Because we're feeling the effects of that in the energy market right now.
Yeah.
So I'm dubious.
Yeah, I mean, that's understandable. That's very understandable. So should we move on to the Deputy Prime Minister stroke Health Secretary, which, before we even get into who it is, the fact that Deputy Prime Minister has been thrown in with Health Secretary just shows how pointless the role of Deputy Prime Minister is. I mean, there wasn't a Deputy Prime Minister sort of between 2015 when Nick Clegg left and then Dominic Raab was given it in 2021. There wasn't a Deputy Prime Minister in that period.
There wasn't one. I know.
It's a completely pointless position. And I would like to say on the record, I think that was arguably one of Nick Clegg's biggest mistakes at the start of the coalition. He should have asked for a proper minister. Shouldn't have just said, I want to be Deputy PM. He should have said, I want to be either Education Secretary or Home Secretary.
Yes, he should have given himself. He should have been Minister of Education.
That I think would have been, well, obviously, hindsight's 2020, and that was now 22 years ago, so I should probably get over it at this point. So the Deputy PM stroke Health Secretary shows you how useless the role of Deputy PM is, and it's Therese Coffey. So again, I suspect this is another case of someone who's very close to Liz Truss, who's been given this role again because she's someone who will be quite loyal and sort of do as she's told. And I think for me that the biggest concern around her is her position on LGBT plus rights and her very sketchy record, particularly around being opposed to gay marriage, particularly at a time when we have a monkeypox outbreak, which is definitely having an impact on the LGBT plus community. That concerns me, and obviously I'm hoping to be proven wrong, but that does worry me.
Well, also, so there are a couple of reasons that I was annoyed about this as a bisexual woman. Her position on same-sex marriage and LGBT plus issues. As health secretary as well, we have a massive issue in the United Kingdom when it comes to trans kids getting the support that they need, mental health support, gender reassignment surgery, also the hormones that they need to begin that process. Incredibly elongated because, again, NHS funding issues, staffing issues, etc. So we now have a woman in this position who is, nailed her colours to the mast years ago, anti-LGBT plus. She uses her faith to explain that she's anti-LGBT, which I find interesting. But she voted against same-sex marriage. She voted against it again in 2019 when it was to be introduced in Northern Ireland. She actually didn't only vote against same-sex marriage, she was one of 15 MPs that asked for it to be thrown out completely from Parliament, that it shouldn't even be debated at all. Also her stance on abortion. We talked about Roe v. Wade last week. When the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade happened in the US, she said that she would prefer that women didn't have abortions, but it's not for her to condemn people that do. But her voting record consistently does not agree with the words that she said that day. She was against making abortion pills, at-home abortion pills, available. In 2012, she defended Jeremy Hunt when he said that abortions should only be allowed up to 12 weeks. I mean, we have Lindsey Graham in the United States at the moment, big member of the GOP, Bible Belt Republican, saying that women should only be allowed abortions past up to 15 weeks. So, he's got 3 weeks on Theresa, and she's our health secretary. So I think that we should be very, very, very concerned at the moment with the... Am I saying that she's going to overturn abortion in the UK? No, I don't think that there is any sort of... The public would be outraged, right? She would not be able to do that. What I am saying, though, is in her role as health secretary, she can make it incredibly difficult for women and people of the LGBT plus community to get access to the healthcare that they need. And so I think we should be concerned in her role as health secretary. And that would be me. But also as well, again, this just shows that Liz Truss is electing her pals, because have you seen her on Good Morning Britain? Theresa Coffey is absolutely terrible at talking to anybody about anything that she needs to justify or defend. She cannot defend or justify her position on anything. And, if you can't stand up against Martin Lewis, who is a fantastic guy, by the way, props to him with the energy crisis. If you can't sit there and just defend yourself, what sort of cabinet are you? You're not the best, are you?
No,
yeah.
I agree. I think
that was my rant on Twitter.
No, I think those are fair comments. As you say, even if you put those her controversial views aside, she's just not a particularly impressive politician in my view. Just not. Yes. Doesn't scream ministerial material. She doesn't scream deputy prime minister and health secretary. Well, yeah. So.
Which is why this whole diverse cabinet thing's really annoying me, because it's like, yes, all of the people in it are very incompetent.
Yeah.
Go on.
So on to Home Secretary, and it's Suella Braverman, who, just start by saying Suella Braverman is, I believe, the first UK Attorney General ever to both defend domestic criminal activity as well as international criminal activity.
Yeah,
she
defended
Boris Johnson when he was found to have been guilty of breaking COVID rules. I believe she also defended what's his name, the former advisor to Boris Johnson. Dominic Cummings. Yeah, God, I forgot his name then for a second.
God, don't forget him.
God, no, never forget him. My word. She defended Dominic Cummings when he had his Durham escapade. Let's call it that. God, that feels like so long ago now, but that wasn't really that long ago. It's bizarre.
No,
it wasn't only.
COVID has messed us up on timelines massively.
Yeah, and of course she also gave the UK legal advice to suggest that breaking international law regarding the Northern Ireland Protocol would be fine, which almost every other respectable international lawyer said, no, that's clearly not right.
Yeah, literally, America had to be like, guys.
Yeah. I mean, it's yeah. So the fact that she's now in charge of Home Affairs concerns me greatly, particularly given her views on, well, just on human rights, which to me just sounds so bizarre to say this.
On normal people.
That's the thing, right? She has actually been on the record as saying she doesn't like the fact the UK has a rights culture, which first of all isn't true. If anything, there are countries like the US, the Republic of Ireland, Canada, who have constitutionally embedded rights from really when they started as countries. That's a rights culture, embedding human rights as of, what was it? When did Labour pass it? Was it 1999, 2000? The Human Rights Act. Having it for literally for 2 decades is not a rights culture. That's my first point.
Yeah,
just look at that off the bat.
Let's make this into a generational point though. But I feel like it's because obviously, like, there have been 2 generations of people that have been raised with like, it is my right to do this.
Yeah, that's
she likes it. Like,
I don't
think she likes
that's the thing. I don't get. We're such a weird, like, British conservatism, and not all of it, just the one particular part of it has this dislike of sort of entrenched human rights.
Yeah,
and if you think about it, just that fundamentally, I don't get why. It's just such a bizarre concept.
Yeah, because it's because, right. So you look at her stance on other things, and like, this is a really good example to lead into this is her attitude towards the welfare state and working people, but also people that need benefits. So she has. So I put on my notes here, Suella Braverman has an obsession with benefits, and let me unpack that. When she was running for leader of the Conservative Party, she spent ages talking about people getting benefits that don't need benefits, right? We in the United Kingdom, under the Conservatives, have seen universal credit, which is now the conglomeration of all of the previous benefits that people used to get. They've sort of conglomerated them into one universal credit benefit. For a single person, for an entire year, you get £4,018.92 on universal credit. And she's going, these people, they have too much money, they don't. For an entire year, you get £4,000.
And how much did she claim on expenses?
And how much are the I'll get to that because I've been a plan. And how much are our energy bills now? Some are grossing £3,500. So what? These people are living beyond their means. Secondly, I did a bit of maths when it comes to her expenses. And Suella Braverman claimed more for her second home than those people getting universal credit for an entire year. Suella Braverman claimed £4,815.59 in expense for her second home, right? She claimed the total of £159,000 as expenses. So I did a bit more.
Sorry, just to clarify, that's a total over how long a period?
A year.
Okay.
A year.
That's
159,000.
I mean, even when you first said that might be over the last part. That's mad.
Over a year, right? And let's do a bit more. Let's do a bit more maths, Adam, because I'll be honest, you can see my working class coming out now because she's attacking people for their class, and it really annoys me.
But
she is entitled as a cabinet secretary, as a cabinet member, to a salary of £99,732 a year. As a Conservative MP, she has a salary of £81,932. So her combined salary is £181,600 a year, and she still claims £159,000. Also, let's compare that to the average wage in the UK. The average wage in the UK for last year was £38,131 for a full-time role.
Yeah.
So she's getting paid more than triple what British people earn, and she's still claiming over £150,000 in additional support, and she has the nerve to call people that are claiming universal credit scroungers.
Yeah, it's just unjustified. I mean, to be honest, even if you weren't calling benefits, even if you weren't having that position on benefits, that would still be completely unjustified. It's just not.
Precisely. Like,
particularly given that she's an English. I believe she's an MP in the south of England. Correct me if I'm wrong.
She's MP for Fareham in Hants, is it? Hants, where's that?
So I think that's it. Well, the point is that you don't. There's no justification for needing to claim on a second home if you are in the south of England as an MP. There's just no. It's just, I mean, again,
dude, on that salary, you could buy a freaking house.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's unjust. And as I was saying when we talked about the monarchy, there's things on my constitutional priorities list above that, and that is definitely one of them. That is just obscene and unjustifiable.
I think that MPs' expenses, for the most part, unless it comes to staff payment, etc., and payment of a constituency office, should be scrapped, because they're paid far too much to need to have to pay for expenses. Because I'm expected to travel into work, and I'm expected to do loads of things, and I ain't paid 30.
Well, I think some travel expenses could be justified if you're in, say, for example, if you're in the Shetland Islands,
so
if you're
traveling from your
if you're Alistair
constituency to
Carmichael,
London,
for example, when you're MP for Shetland, I think that's justifiable.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If you're traveling from your constituency to London, absolutely claim that train ticket. But claiming for your second home, claiming over $3,500 for energy bills for a second home, get a grip, not to heat your house.
It's crazy.
I don't, and that's, but to me, it's, Suella Braverman symbolises the early 2000s Conservative, which was because this, let's be honest, benefits Britain is like early 2000s poverty porn, right?
Yeah.
So it's the old Conservative tract of people that are on benefits are lazy.
It's the sort of the nasty party label.
They're the problem with this country, and you're like, well, no. Which is why when she started talking about it, I remember looking at my partner. I was like, didn't we get over this like 10 years ago? Didn't we all start talking about this 10 years ago?
Yeah. Sorry, we need to. I'm just keeping on time. We need to probably move on.
Yeah. You can edit out that bit where I was talking about tokenism, though, because I don't like how I put it across.
That's fine. So, on to the foreign. I want to talk about foreign and defence combined because they are sort of linked. So you've got James Cleverly as Foreign Secretary and Ben Wallace has continued as Defence Secretary. So actually, I'm going to do something quite surprising. I'm actually going to give Liz Truss some credit. I do think it was the right decision to keep Ben Wallace in defence.
Ben Wallace.
I think that is the one. Oh, look at that and go, yes, that was a good appointment. He's somebody who clearly has the respect of Ukraine. He's someone who clearly has made the right decisions regarding Ukraine, I believe.
It was made stuff happen with Ukraine.
So I genuinely believe he is someone who, I think that is probably the one where I'll go, well done, Miss. You got one right.
Yeah. Out of an entire cabinet, you did one, girl.
One right.
Well done.
And then, so James Cleverly's one who, actually, again, I don't know that much about. I mean,
I don't know that much.
You see him quite a lot on. He used to be on TV quite a lot because he used to be, I believe, chair of the Tory party. And he's someone who sort of, I believe, so people say he's quite polite and nice. But again, it's one of those things where I don't really know that much about him. I guess because of particularly how important the Ukraine issue is, I guess we'll have to watch and see.
I've seen him on Question Time a few times, and I do think he presents incredibly well. But he just strikes me as a standard middle of the road Tory, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't think there's anything
I think that's probably
overtly offensive about him.
I think one point I would raise is that he was one of the people who stuck with Boris to the end, wasn't he? I think he was part of the Johnson cabinet right until the end. So maybe he's someone again who you think has he been selected just because he will not do as he's told.
He would abandon all principle.
Well, I just again to sort of, I do want to quickly talk about the snub list. I have got a snub list here as well, but my sort of final point would be just to rearrange this point that it just seems that it's mostly a cabinet of nodding dogs.
So, to expand a little bit, I know that we're conscious of time, but to expand a little bit, it's what she needs, right? So one of the things that we mentioned last week was that when you're elected leader of a party, you're elected on 8,000 votes, 8,000 people, which is not your parliamentary party. So you need to get the parliamentary party on side. So you need to make sure that your cabinet stays in line. So if we're looking at it from a tactical perspective, she has everything that she needs in the cabinet.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So onto the snub list, and I've got 3 full snubs and sort of half a snub. So let's start with the half. Penny Mordaunt was given the position of Leader of the House of Commons and the official title is Lord President of the Privy Council, which sounds like something from Doctor Who. But but to me, I don't know. I thought Penny Mordaunt would get because she was kind of viewed right at the start of the leadership election as kind of the darling of the Tory party. I thought she was going to win. I think everybody, I think lots of people said she was going to win.
Mm.
And she now seems to have been given a sort of, I don't want to say a secondary role because obviously it's an important position, but it does feel like she has been sort of sidelined a bit.
I think she went too far, mate. And this was my thing. I think she went too far in her campaign, and it was very difficult to watch the campaign because I was stateside when it was happening, so it was just awful to try and keep track of. But she went uber freaking right wing, she went crazy right wing, and I think that she went even too far for the Parliamentary Conservative Party because obviously they need to get elected, right? So to go too, and she was really banging that anti-trans drum and really getting in on the culture war things. And to be honest with you, I think that Liz Truss felt like she needed to give her something because there was a sort of swell of support for her initially, but I think it was even a bit too far for them.
Well, I think she clearly felt a bit, because previously she had actually had quite sensible positions on trans rights, and she had actually made quite sensible comments. And I think because she had to appeal to
out of nowhere.
But this is the bizarre. I think someone was clearly telling her, "Oh my God, you're going to lose the vote of the."
You need to go to the right. You need to go to the right.
And I think I kind of, as much as I don't like it, I understand why she did it. But yeah, it was bizarre as well because she seemed
went too far.
But weirdly, she was also. This is going on a bit of a tangent, but she was out-Brexited, if you get what I mean, by Liz Truss, who, of course, it was just bizarre how she wasn't able to get, that sort of, that core Brexit support.
Because she went too far into the culture war side of it and didn't.
But even then, you'd think people like Rees Mogg and Nadine Dorris would love that, wouldn't they? You'd think. I thought it was a bit strange.
Do they? Because isn't Jacob Rees-Mogg one of those sort of people where they call him? I listened to a comedian from South Africa and they call him a British racist, where they're just very politely racist to you. You know what I mean? They're not as outward in I don't like this. They're very much from an economic perspective and try and make an argument that has no substance.
Possibly. I don't know. I just think I think Penny Mordaunt has become a bit of a. She's a bit of a strange one to me, so I wanted to bring her up.
She went, I said, she was.
It was a weird. It was such a weird. Yeah. I think from the start, her campaign video was terrible as well, which didn't help. It was just a weird. Awful. Yeah, bizarre. Anyway, so on to the. So the three big snubs. The first one is Priti Patel is out as Home Secretary, which, well, see, you say yes, and I understand why you say yes. But I actually think Suella Braverman is probably worse because at least with Priti Patel, you understand. You know what? I would almost say it's better the devil you know, because with Suella Braverman, it almost seems like she seems more like a radical right wing wildcard, whereas Priti Patel came across as more of a traditional right wing. You understood what she was. So in a weird way, I'm not saying I'm sad. I'm not saying I'm not sad to see. But
I think that she could. This sounds really terrible, but from an oppositional perspective, I think that these people in cabinet now could be bullied. And I don't think that Priti Patel could be bullied.
Yes.
There's no way that you could bully a bully as big as Priti Patel. She didn't care. In her last speech as Home Secretary, she told everybody on the Labour bench to shut up.
Well, she's clearly, But again, still, I think. Yeah, so from that perspective, I can see why they got rid of her. But yeah, so as much as I see people online celebrating that Priti Patel was snubbed, I do kind of think.
Yeah, I know. It's. Yeah.
Maybe it was better.
It's the same with any cabinet.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Any Tory cabinet is crap.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, so the next one was Dominic Raab, who is out of the cabinet, and the question of why he was ever in there probably is justified.
Still resonates with everyone.
But the fact he was deputy prime minister as well, which again we've already had this conversation. It was basically almost as if Johnson had to give him a role because he'd been loyal and didn't want to actually give him any real responsibility. So he said, "You could be deputy prime minister." That's it.
And have this token role and sit next to me.
And occasionally you can, get shouted at by Angela Rayner, and I don't have to get shouted at by you. Could do that instead of me.
Which was. Let's be honest. Let's reminisce on those moments, and weren't they great?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's just. But to be honest, I think in a weird way he might be happy because he is currently in his constituency of Esher and Walton. The Lib Dems are gunning for him hard.
Under threat,
and you get the impression from Lib Dems there that it's not just a case of we want to get rid of him because we want to Lib Dem there. It really is a case of
personal.
This is a Brexiteer, diehard Brexiteer who campaigned for Brexit from the start. We really want to take this guy out just for the sake.
And if you can get his seat, how amazing!
Yeah, exactly. If we can win his seat, wonderful. But let's just get this guy out of the House of Commons because it would be really. I genuinely think it'd be amazing. Okay, the final one on my snub list is my MP, the MP for Surrey Heath, Michael Gove.
Gove. Oh!
We knew he was going to be snubbed because he himself said, sort of like a week before the announcement, he said he knew he wasn't going to get a position in the front bench again, and he bizarrely he sort of came out and supported Rishi Sunak with only about a week to go, which I think again kind of gave you the idea there was no way he was going to ever get a job under Liz Truss. But also there were rumours that he was going to resign.
So
in the Guardian, I know the Guardian reported this that there was rumours that he was thinking of resigning, but actually I never believed them because I think I get the impression he will probably quite enjoy being the sneaky backbench MP who causes trouble on the backbenches, causes mischief. You get the impression he will love that. That will be that will be something he will love to do. He'll enjoy doing it.
Of course he will.
Messing around, causing trouble for Liz Truss.
The other day, I thought that was really interesting that Boris turned up to Parliament the other day and went and sat at the back of the hall.
Yeah.
So I was like,
You do kind of wonder.
Maybe he could be involved in this Boris's great comeback.
Could there? I mean, that is a good question. Could there be a return of the unholy alliance of Gove and Johnson, with them each with a knife behind their back, ready to stab the other one just in case? Where they're both, causing trouble for Truss on the backbenches. It wouldn't surprise me. I'd say.
I can see it.
It wouldn't surprise me at all. And you for some reason with Michael, I think it's because he said he's a fan of the show, but I do get a Game of Thrones vibe from Michael Gove sometimes, that sneaky political Machiavellian character
with the little dagger behind his
exactly.
back.
You always get the impression that he's just ready to strike at any moment.
But there is one person that I would like to bring up that is in the cabinet, just for very personal reasons, as you all know. As a resident of Norwich for 8 years.
Oh, yes.
I hate the fact that Chloe Smith is on the cabinet.
What's her? It's a junior role. Which one is it?
It's a junior role. Oh goodness, this is terrible.
But has she been?
She's been trying to get the blinking cabinet for years.
But she has been a junior minister before. So she was a junior minister in the coalition. Where Paxman, she was killed. She was destroyed by Paxman during the coalition years.
Paxman, I mean, that was terrible.
I must admit, at the time, I did feel some sympathy because it was very clear that Osborne had just basically thrown her under a bus and kind of didn't care. So I did feel a bit bad. This was a young female MP who clearly had just been, thrown to the dogs.
She's Secretary of State for Work and Pensions. That's what she is now.
Okay, that is quite an important role. So that is one. So
I just wanted to say, as a Norwich resident, she's a terrible constituency MP. You never see her in the constituency. The only time you see her in the constituency is when there's a photo op going. And 9 times out of 10, she actually copies the Labour ones. And that is true because we've actually got the evidence for that. Her voting record stinks. She'll do anything to get into power. That's all I want to say about Chloe Smith, because everybody that is the Conservative leader, she has backed them to the hill. She backed Boris for the entire time, even through all of the COVID stuff, she backed him. Then as soon as it became obvious that Liz Truss was going to be leader, she got onto that wagon and she was like, Liz Truss is the answer, Liz Truss is the answer. And she will say anything to get into power. And she's going to lose the seat.
Well, why isn't she? By the sounds of it, she should have lost it already. By the sounds of it, what's been happening?
Honestly, we've got very.
Norwich South is very safe because you need to change your offension and go for the north.
Yes, we're going.
Go take the north from Norwich.
Oh yeah, no, but she's going to lose her seat because she, like I said, you never see her in the constituency, and I think a big part, if you're obviously not if you're not in the cabinet, which she hasn't been until now, you should be doing more work in your constituency. You should be working for your members. You should be doing all of these. Yeah. There's no evidence of it. So I just wanted to say, personal note, when I saw that she was, I was like, no. but I knew it was coming because she
yes, yeah, it was not, yeah,
kicked out.
Okay, so moving on to finally on to energy policy, and obviously, but before the death of the monarch, this was the story, understandably so. It was such a huge question of what was going to happen with energy bills, millions of people threatened by fuel poverty, and there was an announcement made that there was going to be a cap on the price of energy. I believe at £2,500.
£2,500, yeah.
And my main takeaways from this, first of all, there was a sort of very brief reference that this would somehow include business, and I want to see a lot more detail about that, because I don't want to see the likes of Amazon getting financial support on their energy bills. Obviously, don't get me wrong, the little cafe run by Grandma Smith, absolutely. Even sort of a medium-sized restaurant, fair, yeah, exactly. Small medium-sized businesses, I understand, but I don't want to see, as I said, like giants like the Apple. I don't want the Apple Store to suddenly have its iPads, that are constantly on, being paid for by us. Thank you very much.
And I don't want McDonald's to have its fryers that are
yes, exactly, that would just, so let's, I really want to see more detail on that. And of course, the question of this is going to cost a lot of money, obviously, and it's very clear. And I think Keir Starmer actually did quite well to make this very. He did very well to lay out this clear ideological choice Liz Truss is making, where she's saying that the energy companies, which are making obscene profits, not through any ingenious, genius business savviness of their own, not through any sort of, brilliant, wonderful business technique. They're simply making these obscene profits because of the fact there is a global crisis. There is a war in Ukraine. They're making this. This is how this is why they are. This is where these obscene profits are coming from, and she's making a choice. Instead of taking, even just some of those profits, she's not going to take any of them. Instead, she's going to borrow. She's going to basically pay for it through borrowing, and effectively make our generation and probably multiple generations beyond us pay for it. And it's, to me, that's unjust. There's no, I don't understand. Even like I'm not a socialist. I'm not someone who loves crazy high taxation. But to me, it's just, it makes no sense from any ideological perspective to saddle future generations while letting undeserved profits go, untouched.
I agree, and I think that Starmer put it perfectly, and I think that it encapsulates the ideological issue that the Tories are posing to the nation at the moment, which is basically, if you want to support Ukraine, you have to pay more energy for energy, and that's not true. That's just not true. Like, we should not be using the Ukrainian war as a scapegoat for these energy companies basically participating in the unfettered capitalism that the Conservatives support at the moment. We can't use it as an excuse. And like you said, the issue that I have is the issue that it is not a costed plan. It's not costed, really, because essentially what it is like you said, it's borrowing money and placing the strain on generations later on down the line, when in reality what we should be doing is we should be looking at how we can avoid such crises in the future. Yes, we are on a planet that is on fire. We are on a planet that is literally killing itself because of the harm that we are doing to the planet, right? It's being destroyed. So if we were to put an actual person that is competent in the energy seat rather than a Victorian man, then what we would do is we would be able to look at alternative methods of creating energy within this country to enable there to be less borrowing. We should create a windfall tax at the moment so that we take their profits away from them to create a downfall so that there can be a lowering in energy prices. During that time, there should be an effort by the British government to encourage business in green energy. We should be offering tax breaks to solar panel farms, to people who want to assist with hydroelectricity, people who want to build wind farms. If you're talking about giving businesses tax breaks, these are the businesses that you should be giving tax breaks to. You should not be giving tax breaks to Russian oligarchs and their businesses that they hold in the United Kingdom. You should not be giving tax breaks to multinational companies like Amazon that do not invest in the communities and do not invest in this country. And the way that Keir Starmer put it, it is exactly correct. At this moment in time, it is a choice by the Conservative Party to not invest in the British people. And the whole argument of Brexit, to just bring it back to Brexit, was that we needed to get out of Europe so that we could invest in ourselves. And the first crisis that we have had, discounting the pandemic, and I'm discounting that because that's a global crisis, the first national crisis that we have had, the Conservatives have chosen to not invest in the British public and its future.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think,
and the French are opening up nuclear power stations again. The French are like, let's get cracking. Let's
go.
That
was the thing that really irritated me. I think it was a couple of weeks. I think it was one of Johnson's last speeches he gave, where he basically bizarrely blamed Nick Clegg. I mean, he blamed Nick Clegg, he blamed Gordon Brown and Tony Blair for the lack of action on alternative energy sources, as if the Conservatives haven't been on their own since 2015 and coalition since 2010.
That pertinent then, right? So let's have a look at geopolitically. Let's look at it. The climate change movement really took off in its sense in the early 2000s, which was coming towards the end of the Labour government. Do I think that Labour should have been on the green energy front before? Yeah, I think that people should have been on the green energy front from the 70s, but shoulda, woulda, coulda. It is what it is. You are in that moment right now, so do something.
Yes, yeah, no, absolutely. I think, it's bizarre to me that this seems like the perfect opportunity.
Stop blaming Russia.
Yes. Yes. Just to conclude, I think now it seems like such a common sense time to make that transition to alternative sources of energy.
Stop blaming Russia for your own incompetencies, and also stop blaming Russia for the fact that you thought that you could trust the Russians to have this massive pipeline to Europe. Okay, that was your generation's mistake. Own it, move on.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah. I mean, I can't really argue with that. Yeah. It's...
Get over it.
So actually, on that note, to conclude, a bit of good news. We should talk about the brilliant news from Ukraine. But though I do want to take this, I'm trying not to get too excited and get my hopes up too much.
I know.
Because they've clearly taken back, I think it was thousands of square kilometers of land back from Russia.
6,000, and he's 50k away from the border.
But I think, so clearly that's good news, obviously, goes without saying. But I am slightly concerned about the Russian response, because from what I gather, within Russia, there seems to be now very much a huge pressure from Russian nationalists, radical Russian nationalists, to effectively go onto a full war footing, to start, introducing conscription, basically go from sort of the special operation that they're calling it to a full-blown invasion. Not that there already is a full-blown invasion, but you know what I mean, like a proper.
There's a split, right? So as would happen in this moment in time, there's a split where the nationalists have the stronger half, right, and the stronger part of the narrative. They clearly have Putin's ear. Yeah, and Putin is clearly everything.
Yeah.
But there is a level of discontent within Russia as well that I think that we shouldn't discount. There are individuals on local levels that have signed a petition saying that they request peace. There is an oppositional politician that went on national news the other day and called for peace talks. There is some sort of shift, because it's difficult for the Russians to deny how well Ukraine have done.
Yes, yeah.
It's difficult because.
But I still, well, I mean, that's the problem. I still think just because of
I'm with you, but I just want to say there is.
Yeah, no, to be absolutely clear.
There are resistance people.
There are Russian people who clearly oppose the war. Yes, yeah.
The issue is, I think I agree with you. I think it's going to drive Putin the other way, and the other way is full-scale warfare, all-out warfare, which you could argue he's been pushing sort of now. And, we need to remember that Russia does have nuclear weapons and tactical nukes, etc.
Yes,
so we need to it's difficult to gauge his mental state. But also, by the same token, the Ukrainian people Obviously, you know, we're on the internet and everything. Absolute solidarity with the Ukrainian people. Slava Ukraini, you're doing absolutely amazing. You're doing it absolutely. To have taken Western weapons and to have repelled them yourself, amazing.
Absolutely
amazing. Like,
yes. Yeah.
But I am concerned now, as you said. It's good news because they've propelled him, but it's one of those moments where it's like, is this silence?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think the Russians called it so is it the term they used, tactical retreat? I think they called it
tactical retreat and a regrouping.
Yes, regroup. That was the term I think that was particularly notable. Yes.
So yeah.
On that note, that is where we finish. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. We will be back next Wednesday in a week's time. I think we will make Wednesday the official slot now. I think it's just easier for both of us, which is fine. So yeah, if you like this video, please give it a like. Please share and subscribe to the channel if you want. That'd be appreciated. And yeah, see you next week.